Welcome to Piano Inspires podcast, celebrating pianists, teachers, and innovators as they share their inspiring stories about the transformative power of music.
Are you a teacher or parent looking for a fun and educational way to inspire kids through music? Introducing Piano Inspires Kids, the ultimate resource for young pianists. Each quarterly issue will inspire students to discover composers and music from around the world, explore creative activities, and play new music written by today's leading composers. Piano Inspires Kids will also connect young pianists to a broader community of inspired music makers through the many opportunities to share and submit their own content. From practice tips and technique guides to interviews with young pianists and composers, Piano Inspires Kids offers something for every young musician eager to explore the world of piano. Subscribe today at kids.pianoinspires.com using code PODCAST15 at checkout for a subscription less than $2.50 a month billed annually.
Welcome to Piano Inspires podcast. I'm Jennifer Snow. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of the Francis Clark Center, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be sitting with the amazing Dennis Alexander. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you, Jennifer. So nice to be here.
Well, you really don't need any introduction at all, and you have a bio that is just extraordinary. It's so inspiring just to think of all the many things you've done, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you about so many of them. You've had an illustrious career in higher education. You are a published composer, and your music is played all over the world with all kinds of festivals. You're a workshop clinician, an author, a speaker, a pianist, having played at Carnegie Hall. And you've received many accolades and awards, including ones that are very dear to us at the Francis Clark Center, the Lifetime Achievement Award.
And to me as well.
And the MTNA Francis Clark Keyboard Pedagogy Award. So we're just honored to have you on the podcast. And I'm excited to delve into everything about Dennis Alexander.
Oh, goodness, let's do it.
So we love to start at the beginning and to take a second to think back to tiny Dennis. When you first think about music, what were some of those experiences that come to mind?
Well, tiny Dennis started lessons when he was 7. And this was in a little tiny town in southwest Kansas. The town was Copeland. And I had the most amazing first piano teacher that one could ever have. I always think of her when I'm teaching because she, from the age of 7, ignited a spark in me about music that just, I instantly fell in love with music, and I could hardly wait to get back week after week with her. Her name was Lila McCune. She was from Mississippi, and she and her husband were living in a little town called Montezuma, which was 10 miles away from Copeland. Copeland was a town of 200. I grew up in a little farming community, and my father farmed, and most of the people out there did. But when I went for my very first lesson, Lila McCune came to the door to greet me. I was feeling very nervous as a 7-year-old having my first piano lesson, but I was very excited. And she looked down at me with these bright red lips and the biggest smile I'd ever seen. And I can still see her face to this day. I'll never forget that moment. And she had this wonderful Southern drawl accent. And she said, "Well, Dennis Alexander, I'm so pleased to meet you."
Oh, beautiful.
And I had never heard anybody talk like this before. I thought, this is kind of amazing. So she brought me over to her grand piano. I had never sat in front of a grand piano before. I'd only seen pictures of grand pianos. And she patted me on the back and she said, "Well, Dennis, we're going to have so much fun together." And instantly, I just thought, this is getting better by the second. And I thought to myself, I've never sat in front of a grand piano or in front of a person from a foreign country before. I thought she was from a foreign country
Isn't
because
that
of that
funny?
accent. And she sat down next to me, and every lesson I had, she would sit down and improvise duets to play along with me. Back in those days, we didn't have these wonderful teacher accompaniments that we have in all of our method books today. But fortunately for me, she improvised and played by ear. But of course, she also taught me to read. And we had so much fun every single week. And I'll never forget that experience because I realize now when I look back on those early lessons that she was teaching me to always keep going no matter what. I couldn't stop. I was learning keyboard choreography from watching her move her hands and opening gestures, closing gestures. She was teaching me to be a better listener, and she was also teaching me just the joy of making music and having so much fun.
Yes, and think about at that young age, she's improvising every week with you, which means the creative aspect of music as a spontaneous act
Yes,
in collaboration with
yes,
another,
yes,
and the sounds
yes,
that
yeah.
as a young person just, you know, your
Oh,
imagination goes wild.
I give her full credit for instilling in me at such a young age the joy of making music with others.
Yes.
I in college I did tons of accompanying with violinists and singers mostly. And in my college teaching days at the University of Montana, I was with a fabulous violinist, and we had a duo for gosh about 12 years. And so I've done almost all of that repertoire for violin and piano, and so much chamber music, and all of those elements in my life as a professor at the university. I credit really the joy of doing that to my first piano teacher.
And how important that is when we think about you've been so involved with teacher education and
Yes.
training many generations of piano teachers.
Many, many.
That is that's infused in that collaborative music making and the importance of lighting the flame
Yeah.
and inspiring that in your own students who go on to have their own students as
Yes.
well, which
Yeah.
is so exciting.
Yeah.
Were your parents involved with music? I mean, when you grow up in a small place, was there music making in the home? How did you get to the
There,
piano lesson from home?
oh,
Not in a
well,
car, but of course but you know what I mean?
no.
It's like, how did you move from being a small child to your parents thinking, "Oh, we need to get him to piano lessons."
I might have shared this story with you once before, but when you live in a very tiny little town in southwest Kansas, there's not much going on. There's no movie theater. There are no things to really do except on weekends we would every Saturday night we would watch the Lawrence Welk show.
Oh,
And did I tell you this story
I
once?
don't think so. I'm
Okay, okay.
curious.
Every Saturday night we would sit down in front of our little black and white TV, and Lawrence Welk show would come on. And of course, my folks loved music. My father played piano when he was little. My mother did not, but they loved music, and there was always music in the house. And they loved the Lawrence Welk show. But there was a particular performer on that show. You might have heard the name Joanne Castle.
Okay.
Okay, Joanne was a kind of a honky tonk ragtime player. She was a very, very gregarious personality and big blonde hair. And whenever she would come out and sit down in front of this, it was an upright piano and play her ragtime pieces, she would just smile and look at the camera all the time and play. And I just thought, she's having so much fun
I want to
playing
do
the
that.
piano. And I said, "That's what I wanna do when I grow up. If playing the piano is that much fun, that's what I wanna do." So my parents, got me a piano. I remember the day it arrived in a big truck and was brought into the house. It was a little upright called a Winter Musette, brand, and then lo and behold, I started lessons with Mrs. McCune, and that's where my musical career started.
Do you have siblings?
I have two sisters, an older one and a younger one. I'm in the middle.
And did they play music as well,
No,
or was it
they
special for
did.
you?
My parents wanted them to take piano, and they were a little more reluctant, and they didn't really have a natural affinity for the instrument, and I think they both were antagonized by the fact that I did it easily,
Right.
and they would prefer to probably not take lessons because Dennis was the one that it came easily for.
Hmm.
So they kind of went other directions.
So you're taking piano lessons, you're growing up
Mhm.
in Kansas. Did you meet other piano students? Did you have a peer group that also identify with music? Or was it
No.
something that you did and then you found your peer group when you went to university?
I was the only pianist in my school. Now, I realized I went to a very, very small school. It was from first grade all through high school. There were 6 kids in my class, 3 boys and 3 girls, and 2 of them were my cousins. And um, I, I was the only pianist, which in some ways was very advantageous because I had to do everything. I mean, not only musically, but I had to be in every school play. I had to be on the football team, the basketball team, the track team. I was in every school play. And as the only pianist, when it came time for festivals, uh, I was accompanying the choirs. I was accompanying the vocal duets, the vocal trios. I was always doing a piano solo. And so I got very, very involved in collaborative work, even in high school. But then when I went to the university, I, of course, had a wonderful peer group, lots of pianists, and that was, just fantastic at the time.
It's so interesting because in your discussion of being the only pianist, you're describing who you are in the world today, which is somebody that does all kinds of things and is engaged with so many things and is filled with joy. And it made you special in your community that you had this identity as being
Well,
the only pianist so that you were needed and you were part of things. And
well, I think I was really lucky growing up in such a small town that you know allowed me to be involved in so many different things. When you're in a school play and you're on stage, you get comfortable with that element, that part of your life, and by being so involved in playing for so many different groups, you get comfortable being a collaborative pianist.
right.
You get comfortable being a solo pianist as well. So there were times when I was growing up that I thought, oh, I would give anything if I lived in a big city and went to a big high school. I would not have had the opportunities that I had I been in that situation. So I I feel very blessed that I grew up in a very small town, that I had teachers who cared about me and were nurturing. I had teachers who had taught both of my parents. That's how small it was.
Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And
Eh,
I also was blessed to have such good teachers all the way through my growing up years, and different levels of piano study. And
It's
I
really the power of a piano teacher, isn't it? That because you had those wonderful teachers, in a smaller place, it didn't matter. You had the teachers, you had the community, and as a
yeah.
result, you flourished into a community leader as a pianist.
True. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
But I was also very lucky that I had teachers who knew when it was time to pass me on,
Hmm.
to the next level of teacher. So I basically had 3 teachers when from beginning level through high school. And the last 5 years from 8th grade through high school, I studied with a just a fantastic teacher. At the time, she was a Catholic nun
Hmm.
at St. Mary the Plains College in Dodge City, Kansas. And in fact, I will tell you too a kind of a fun sidelight since we're working here with Piano Inspires. Um, my freshman year in high school, I was playing in the State Music Festival, and I was playing Dr. Gratis ad Parnassum from the Children's Corner Suite. And I went to the State Music Festival, and I was feeling so nervous about being judged as a freshman in high school at the State Music Festival. Lo and behold, my judge was Marvin Blickenstaff.
Oh my goodness. Are
Uh,
you serious?
yes, yes. And that was my first introduction to Marvin Blickenstaff.
Oh my
He
goodness.
was
I
my
did not
judge. You
know
did not know
this.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Love it.
And Marvin was this, I remember at the time he was this tall, wonderfully handsome man with coal black hair, and he was so nice to me as an adjudicator, and was very encouraging. And now, goodness, all these years later, we've been good friends all the many years ever since I was really a freshman in high school when I was first introduced to him.
Oh my gosh, that's a wonderful connection. Incredible connection.
Yeah.
You take off to university. Now you're in your milieu with fellow musicians.
Yes.
Where did you go to university and what was are you the first generation of your family to go to university?
Yes.
Mhm.
Actually.
And was it
Yeah.
a decision that you had to think about a lot, or was it just a natural progression that you would go into music and that was something your family thought was such a high calling that they were
You know,
supportive?
um, my family was always so supportive. I was so lucky to have both a mother and a father who appreciated my talent and
Mhm.
nurtured it so very, very well. And I knew, I think, when I was maybe 12, 13 years old, that this was going to be my life. I knew that this is what I wanted to do. There was no question about it. There was no question that I wanted to major in piano performance. And I was actually, I was given a scholarship to Oberlin College in Ohio and had planned to go there. And I wanted to go to a university the summer before that to just get a little taste of university life. So I went to the University of Kansas in Lawrence. And when I was there, I had such a wonderful experience. I really liked my teacher, who was Richard Reber. Richard was a student at Eastman. His teacher was Cecile Ginhart, and um, I liked him so much. We just really connected, and he just seemed to be the right person for me. So I made the decision to stay at the University of Kansas, and I'm so glad that I did. It really was a very, very positive experience. In fact, I ended up starting my master's there while I was finishing up my undergraduate work, and then I ended up being hired to teach there full time for 2 years, and then that's when I was looking for other positions, and I then moved to Montana, to the University of Montana, and where I was for 24 years.
How did you feel about the work with piano pedagogy and teacher education? So you're this wonderful pianist and you're a collaborator and you're filled with joy. Were you composing during that time as well, or you're more
No.
focused on I'm a pianist and I'm a piano
Yes,
professor
yes,
and teacher
totally.
education? And where does that passion come
It
from, the pedagogy passion?
well, uh, I knew I wanted to teach. I knew I wanted to perform, and I didn't start teaching piano pedagogy until I went to the University of Montana. And my first couple of years there, as the new kid on the block, I was assigned to teach a theory course and some oral perception, and I had applied students and class piano. So I had a wide variety of things to do. And then after about 2 years, I had been doing a lot of performing, around the state, and all of a sudden I was getting performance majors wanting to study with me. So then they kind of changed my workload to more applied piano, and they wanted me to start a piano pedagogy program there. So that's when I really got involved in piano pedagogy, and we had 8-year-olds that we taught in a group situation every week, and then I would supervise the private lessons that my college students were teaching throughout the week. And so that was about 1974, 75. And so for the next 10 years, I was strictly teaching piano pedagogy, piano performance. I was doing a lot of playing. And then in 1985 is when um, I had dinner one night in Missoula with Amanda Vick Lethko.
Oh,
And that's where little did I realize what I was getting into.
wow.
Because that was kind of the beginning of another whole career for me that was totally not anticipated and totally unexpected. And Amanda uh, was, of course, one of the co-authors of Alfred's Basic Piano Library.
Right.
And she and Willard Palmer and Morty Manis who was the president of owner of Alfred, they wanted me to uh, help them market the method. And Amanda, over dinner, looked at me and she said, "Honey," she said, "Willard and I would like to maybe talk you into doing workshops for us to help us show the method. We'd like to have a university professor that we'd like to have a young man instead of a woman at the time. They thought somehow that a young man might be nice just for variety's sake,
Sure.
I guess, to talk to all of these, mostly female teachers. And so I was very intimidated at the thought of doing this because everybody knew Amanda Vick Lethko and loved her, and everybody adored Willard Palmer.
Right.
And the thought of me going in to give a workshop when nobody really knew me was extremely intimidating to me because I knew they'd prefer to have Amanda or Willard. That would be natural. The first summer I was out giving workshops, Morty and Iris came to the workshop, took me to lunch, and Morty asked me if I would be willing to write some duet books to correlate with the method. And I will be very honest. I told Morty, I've never written a thing in my life. And he was surprised and he looked at me, he said, "Well, why not?" And I said, "Well,
Get busy.
the simple reason is no one's ever asked me, and I've never been a composer." Um, but he said, "Well, do you think you could do this?" And all of a sudden, my previous years of being at the University of Kansas and playing in a nightclub every weekend for 4 years and improvising and my work as a collaborative pianist just kind of zeroed in my brain, and I opened my mouth and said, "Yes, I can do this." And well, he said, "Well, now Willard will have to supervise, or approve of everything you turn in." So I wrote the first book of they were teacher student duets, which back and then in those days was kind of novel. There was hardly anything like this
Right.
out.
And it harkened back to your early experiences. And
Yes,
deep inside you,
right.
you valued that so much.
I remembered my first teacher and how much fun I had, playing simple pieces with her accompanying me on as a secondo, making up those duets. So I knew I could do this. And as it turned out, Willard loved the first book. He didn't want to change a thing, and that's where my career as a composer began, writing duets. And then before I knew it, Morty was having me do solo collections, and I actually, this is unheard of today, but Morty had so much faith in me And how lucky was I?
Yes.
How lucky was I?
Mhm.
And he asked me, he said, he wanted to have a new collection every month.
Oh my.
Oh, yeah, that's what I said because I
Mhm.
was doing a lot of performing. I was at the music school from 7 o'clock in the morning till often 10 o'clock at night.
Sure.
And I would sometimes go home at 10 o'clock and write music for Alfred from 10 o'clock until 1 o'clock, and then start over the next day. And I did this for 10 years, actually. And Morty, early on, though, he asked me, he wanted to know what I was making at the university. And I was almost embarrassed to tell him because, our university salaries weren't that terrific back in
Mhm.
1972 or back in 1985, actually. And he said, I'll tell you what, if I were to advance you royalties to make up for maybe half of your salary, would you write a book a month for me for at least a year? And I looked at him and I said, I will do that if I can, if I have to get permission.
Right.
I got permission, and that gave me just a little extra space in my life
Right.
to come out with solo books, one a month for a year.
Wow.
And that's really what I think helped to propel my career as a composer forward and got me known with teachers
Right.
who had never heard of Dennis Alexander, from Missoula, Montana.
What is your process? I mean, here you are, you've been given the request, you
Mhm.
committed. There's sort of two questions in this question.
Okay.
One has got to do with your character and your values, which must come from your home, which your character of I committed and said yes, probably not realizing what I've got myself into, to
Yes,
quote you.
absolutely.
And but I'm going to do it then because I said I would.
Yeah.
So therefore, the establishment of Morty recognizing in you, if I just say I need this, you will do it, and therefore you will also grow and flourish, and the magic of Dennis will go to the world. And secondly, your compositional process, is it born out of improvisation? Is it born out of uh, you see something that inspires you? I mean, it's very interesting to me.
People ask me this a lot,
I'm sure.
and it's a hard question to answer because it involves a multitude of things. I'm inspired by my students. I'm inspired sometimes by nature. I'm inspired by compositions that I have performed or taught. I'm inspired sometimes just from a title that I come up with. Sometimes it might be a rhythmical motive that gets the process going. I'm a melodic person. I love I really love beautiful melodies, and for me, most compositions need to have a a good sense of melody, if not a really interesting rhythmic motif type of thing. So I'm inspired by so many different things, and because I do improvise easily, and I also play by ear, those particular skills um, were very important in my development as a composer. I'm so grateful that my earlier teachers never discouraged me from improvising.
Right.
Because I used to go to my lessons and sometimes just improvise. And, you know, my first teacher, Mrs. McCune, I remember once I was improvising on one of my pieces, and she stepped back and kind of giggled and smiled. And she said, "Well, Dennis, that was very clever. But if you do that on the recital, I will kill you." I never wanted to embarrass her by doing something I shouldn't do. But she actually loved the idea that I could improvise on a Clementi sonatina or something, and turn it upside down and around, and make it maybe a little more interesting. But so having those particular skills and the background, I think made it much easier for me to come up with a wide variety of styles and pieces. I love to write jazz pieces.
Hmm.
I of course, I loved writing the nocturnes,
Yes.
and I like to write toccatas. And when I did my various collections with my good friend Ingrid Clarefield, Keys to Stylistic Mastery and Keys to Artistic Performance, I was writing in Baroque styles and classical styles and romantic styles and impressionistic styles and contemporary styles.
Right.
So, I've been fortunate that some of the projects that I've been asked to collaborate on also forced me to write uh, the types of pieces that I might not have done otherwise.
Right. And that comes to your character for me, where something comes to you and you don't say, "Oh, I don't do that." You say, "Oh,
I'll try that.
yeah, I'll try that. I could do that."
Yeah, yeah. And whenever I do, for instance, a Zoom session with a group of pedagogy students at a university, I like to tell them, and I like to remind the kids in this uh, group of pedagogy majors to never forget how important it is to be versatile.
Yes.
Be versatile.
Mhm.
Take classes in public speaking, take some business classes, take pedagogy. For goodness sakes, don't ever forget to take piano pedagogy. And if you're a performance major, all the more reason
Yes.
to take piano pedagogy
Mhm.
and learn to do different skills, because you never know when an opportunity might come into your life that you could be qualified for. That could be either a secondary career, or it could be a career that's equally as challenging and interesting to you as your primary career,
Right.
which is exactly what happened to me.
How do you feel about, when we think about the community at large, how few people have the opportunity to cultivate improvisatory skills and improvisatory collaborate like exploration
Mhm.
and composition and creativity? Have you seen, because you're in touch with such a broad music teaching community and pianists, have you seen movement in more exploration of improv, more exploration of composition? We see all these young people now
Yeah.
starting to compose, and technology
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
giving them that opportunity, regardless if someone's teaching them or not.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was growing up, even when I was in college, that opportunity wasn't nearly as
Mhm.
prevalent and generous as it is today. So I'm so happy to see more and more sessions at conferences being offered on improvisation, learning to read chord charts, learning to be more creative in
Mhm.
not only their playing, but also in their teaching. So I think today, and certainly the Francis Clark Center and Piano Inspires does a lot to promote the importance of those skills.
Mhm.
So I think young teachers today are much more apt to want to teach some improvisation in their studios, or um, to encourage their young students or high school students to compose things that did not happen 20 or 30 years ago. Don't you feel that?
Oh, yes. And I was going to actually connect that to this idea of you work a lot with young people. And one of the things I find so wonderful about your music, first, beauty, and makes the piano always sound so big and gorgeous. So that beauty of sound, which is so important, making beautiful sounds and
Yes.
expressing through sound.
Yeah.
But also, you make pieces that are, from a sequential learning perspective, very achievable.
Mm.
So as a young student, you can achieve, you sound like a pianist.
Yes.
You don't sound like you're just, I'm learning piano. You're like, I can perform this piece. Is that something that is sort of the way your mind works? Is it something you're very purposeful about when you're thinking about levels and how the hand size is and how the patterns
Oh,
go? And
absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. When I first started writing for Alfred, um, my keyboard editors, uh, Gail Kowalczyk and E.L. Lancaster, developed a um, very comprehensive listing of uh, traits that needed to be within each level. Okay.
Mhm.
And I tried to adhere to that as much as possible. And writing at the late or elementary or late elementary level is much more challenging for me as a composer than writing at the intermediate level, where you have so much more leeway and options to choose from for
Right.
things to do. So finding ways to write elementary pieces that are interesting and fun and creative, um, pieces that kids want to practice, like to practice,
Mhm.
is very, very challenging. And in fact, whenever I sometimes get asked by budding composers out there, they'll ask if I could possibly look at some things they've written and give them advice. I find that um, for most of them, they want to turn in materials for me to look at that are more advanced.
Right.
And I'll ask them, could you please write a couple of elementary pieces that have certain restrictions,
Mhm.
no 16th notes, no um, even dotted quarter followed by an eighth note rhythm, um, and that covers a fairly wide range of the instrument. And show me what you can write that's fun and interesting and somewhat novel. And I'm amazed at how hard that is for lots of younger composers
Mhm.
to do. But if they ever want to get their foot in the door from a compositional standpoint, writing for educational
Mhm.
companies, they need to be able to come up with interesting, exciting things at that elementary level,
Yeah, the accessible level.
at the accessible level, because
Mhm.
that's first of all, it's what publishers sell the
Right.
most, and the sales go down at the higher levels get,
Sure.
and I think a lot of uh, young composers who are interested in a career doing this don't understand that yet.
I also think it's connected to your deep passion for teaching and also teacher education.
Yeah,
That, you came to composition as an outgrowth of your love and passion
for
for
teaching.
playing piano, yeah, teaching piano
Yeah,
and helping others teach better.
yeah,
And
yeah,
therefore your awareness and understanding of who you're writing for.
yes,
And that's probably something that many young composers haven't thought through. Well,
yes,
actually, if I spend time with the group of people I'm writing for, I'll begin to understand better
yeah, yeah.
how they would respond or
Because
how they learn.
yeah, they have to know how a child thinks. They need to know what works for the young hand or the small hand.
Right.
So yeah, when I'm writing music at those levels, I think very, very hard about what feels good in the hand for the smaller hand, or I try and write pieces that um, are so interesting from a either a harmonic or rhythmic or a melodic standpoint that the child will want to practice it and grow from it. And I love it. For me, the nicest compliment I can get from a teacher is for them to tell me, your music works so well for my kids because it
Right.
fits their hands
Mhm.
and it stays within the level. That's another important thing I
And
think
it
for,
sounds
and it
so
sounds, it makes
beautiful.
them sound better than they are.
Right. It makes them sound big,
Yes,
like
yeah,
pianists.
yeah. And I love it whenever I hear
Yes.
things like that.
I think we
Uh,
need a course on piano pedagogy for composers.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, when you think about it, all you get asked that question so frequently.
Yeah.
So here I am recruiting you in to do something else.
Yeah.
I've got sort of two other questions for you
Okay.
because, we could talk all day and all
Oh, I know.
night.
It'd be
Oh, it's
fun.
so wonderful. We'll have to do another one.
Okay.
Um, One is about who are the people that inspire and influence you the most? I see a trend of powerful women in your story. Your first piano
Yeah.
teacher,
Yeah.
Amanda,
Amanda, my
Ingrid.
and Ingrid.
Hmm.
Ingrid's, one of my dearest, closest friends. And she's a powerhouse,
Yes.
to say the least.
They all are powerhouses,
They all
big
are.
energy,
My
powerful people.
my high school piano teacher was a Catholic nun, and she um, when she was at the St. Mary of the Plains College, she was addressed as Sister Agnes Therese, and she was like the Maria in The Sound of Music. Yeah, she was this young, Catholic nun in full habit. I only saw this much of her face, but she was such an excellent, excellent teacher, and so nourishing to me. And we stayed in touch all these years. When I was in college, she left the order, and we always corresponded constantly.
Mhm.
And I got this letter once saying, "I'm leaving the order. From now on, when you write, you can refer to me with my Christian name, which was Mary Lee Coleman."
Oh my
And I
gracious.
thought, "Oh, how can I possibly call her Mary Lee after Sister Agnes Therese all these years?" And then another, I think about 2 years later, I was a senior in college. I got another envelope in the mail. I opened it up, and it was a wedding invitation. She was getting married,
Oh my.
and this is a good story. She went from Sister Agnes Therese to Mary Lee Coleman, and then she was marrying a man by the name of Richard St. John. So then
Oh,
her name became Mary St. John, very Catholic still.
wow, yes.
And they moved to Anna Maria, Florida.
Oh my goodness.
And she for a while she was the state president of the Florida Music Teachers Association, and then when they later in life retired, and they lived in Bradenton, Florida. But we visited her more than once down there, and she sadly passed away about a year ago.
Wow.
And but Dill was playing the piano all these years, but a real powerhouse of a personality. And I have lots of very wonderful female friends in my life that I admire and treasure, and many of them are teachers, of course.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
and
Wonderful.
yeah. So I'm very very fortunate that way.
What inspires Dennis Alexander? Or
What
who
ins-
inspires
who
Dennis Alexander?
inspires Dennis Alexander? So many things. Um, Beautiful music, opera. Yeah, I almost never miss those Metropolitan Opera broadcasts live in the theater.
Fabulous.
They're just fantastic.
Hmm.
I tell everybody I know, I ask, have you ever been to the Met broadcast in the theater? It's almost better than being there. As I love the interviews, but mostly, of course, the music. It was the music and La Traviata that inspired me really to write the nocturnes.
Oh, how beautiful.
Yeah, I wasn't going to do those nocturnes. Did you know that?
I didn't.
E.L. Lancaster asked me if I would please write 2 books of nocturnes. And my immediate response when he called and asked me that was, E.L., I've got so many romantic style pieces, and I don't really think teachers would necessarily respond or need books of nocturnes from me. And so I probably not. And he was a little disappointed, and he said, "Well, you think about it. I want you to really think about this." So I said, "Oh, yeah, I'll give it some thought." And I hung up and thought, yeah, right. And it was maybe a couple of weeks later, we went to the Met broadcast, and it was Traviata, the
Hmm.
Traviata. And I was sitting there listening to these gorgeous arias and the beautiful singing, and for whatever reason, it just kind of clicked in my brain that I love these melodies, these beautiful harmonies so much. I could do that in those nocturnes.
Right.
And I went home. I called EL the next morning. And I said, EL, you win. You know, you win. I'm
Well, we
gonna.
all won from that
Well,
one.
but thank you. But I started writing, the first book uh, immediately, and they just came out so easily for me. It's my
Mhm.
favorite style to write in, and so then when um, MTNA and Francis Clark gave me the Pedagogy Award,
Mhm.
it was probably one of the greatest highlights in my life,
Oh
and
my
I was
goodness.
so humbled and touched that you thought enough of those nocturnes to do that for me.
Oh, I think they are just, pieces that transform young people's lives, all
Uh,
people's
well,
lives, and they're a crowning achievement.
well,
And
thank
think of
you.
the inspiration for them.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean, it's not surprised, right? It was the highest inspiration that led you to write them.
oh, well,
Hearing that great opera and
yeah,
then just it
yeah,
came out of you.
yeah, yeah. But I'm inspired by just so many things, and I'm inspired by my students.
Of course.
My students inspire me. In fact, those nocturnes, each book I dedicated to a former student. Book one was dedicated to a young lady whom I taught at the University of Montana, Diana Piscini. In fact, she was a Miss Montana. I think the second year I had her, and then my second book of nocturnes were dedicated to Ken Christensen, the
Yes.
former MTNA president,
Oh,
and
wonderful,
Ken
Ken.
did my his master's degree with me. So I my students inspire me to be not only a better teacher but a better composer, and my teacher friends inspire me. Nature inspires me. My better half inspires me. So I get inspiration from so many different sources. Um,
Beautiful.
I have to tell you a funny story about this very subject. When I was working with Willard Palmer many years ago, back in the mid '80s, when 1986, 87, I went down to Houston and visited Willard a number of times. In fact, I even toured with him a couple of workshop tours just to watch the master in action because he was such a master
Yes.
clinician. And no one, I don't think I've ever seen anybody uh, rock teachers like he did. He was like a Baptist minister up there promoting teaching and inspiration. And Willard told me that when he was writing the music for the method, he would get his best inspiration when he was in the bathtub. Yeah. And I said, "Really?" He said, "Oh yeah." He said, It's just so relaxing, and I would just contemplate and think in my brain about what I wanted to write next." And he said one day, Morty Manis called me up on the phone, and he said, "Willard, it's time to take a bath."
Isn't that
He
great?
needed something
Yeah, I
new,
need something created.
and something inspiring. So,
Oh, I
we all
love
get
it.
our inspiration in different ways.
Indeed.
Yes.
And you are such an inspiration to all of us.
Uh,
We like to finish this podcast with a statement that we'd like you to finish.
oh dear. Okay.
Piano inspires.
Piano inspires, I think, love. It inspires happiness. It inspires imagination. And I think if if young people have love, and if they have happiness, and if they have imagination, they're going to go a long ways in life. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and it describes you to a T.
Oh, goodness. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dennis. This was absolutely marvelous. I thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
It's been a joy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. The Francis Clark Center is a not-for-profit educational organization that serves the advancement of piano teaching, learning, and performing. Divisions include Piano Magazine, Piano Inspires Kids, Journal for Piano Research, National Conference on Keyboard Pedagogy, the New School for Music Study, Piano Education Press, International Online Teacher Education, and Piano Inspires Online Community Hub. Please visit us at pianoinspires.com to learn more about our impactful work and inspiring community.